experience?
Sure. So I met my guides at the age of 23. I was on the London Underground. I was going to work, and I was from the age of 16. I had been studying metaphysics, and I'd been in personal development. I'd heard about channeling, but it wasn't something I was interested in, and it was something I had some skepticism about. But it happened to me, and so I had this ongoing series of conversations with them for months. Once I'd established they were my guides, you know, I was like, who are you? What is this voice? Because it was very different to my own mental voices or my own judgmental thoughts.
Yeah, and just to sort of like slow this down a little bit, you're on the
London Underground,
you're
the subway.
on the subway, and literally all of a sudden you hear a voice insert itself into what was previously a conversation you were having in your head about a relationship.
100%. Yeah, I was going through my own thoughts, self-doubts, negative self-talk, and still to this day where I hear them, and it's different for every person who communicates with guides, but the position for me is here. So it's about this high above my head. I don't know if I've gone too high for your camera, but it's about, I guess, 12 inches above my head to the left is the point at which I hear them when I am speaking to them. When I am channeling, as we're about to, normally I will hear the first sentence. I will repeat the first sentence, and then I'm no longer hearing something. It's just kind of coming through. I'm then kind of sat behind, so I can still hear everything that's said. I'm not in a out-of-body trance.
Right.
But that's the mechanism when I'm letting them work to speak through me.
So I've been reading a book on the science of channeling. It's very, very interesting, I'm sure. You know many things intuitively that for those of us who don't have access to this, you know, we want to understand it. But just to sort of be clear, you were not having auditory hallucinations. You had no other symptoms of any clinical mental health crisis. You distinctly were having some sort of auditory information that then felt like a download. Information
Yes.
dropping in without you necessarily feeling you're in constant labor over that.
It was almost as if there was this, they're a group, although I hear them as one voice. It was almost like there was this person up here that was able to just talk to me for the first time. And they said, I had heard them until I was 6, but I have no memory apart from a recurring dream I had all my childhood.
What was the dream?
The dream was
That a group of beings were speaking to me.
So I was born in Birmingham, which is in the center of the UK, but we left there to move down south when I was 6 years old. And this dream went on until I was about 10 years old, that it was the only recurring dream I ever had. I'm in the house, the up to 6 years old house, and I come down the stairs and I walk into the living room we had. And do you remember back when we were younger, televisions would go static at like 12 at midnight? There would just be this sound. So I walk into the living room, and all I can hear is static, really loud static, from the television. And on the left hand of the room, there is a male figure, but I can't make out the face or the features, with kind of a long, I guess it could be a robe, but I'm not sure. And he has his hands here, and his mouth is going like this, like he's obviously saying something, but I can't hear him because of the static. And over on the other corner of the room is a female figure who, it's kind of like she has a huge blonde afro, but it's not quite an afro, but that's how big her head, not her head, but what's emanating her hair. And she's doing the exact same thing. And I'm just standing there trying to hear them both, and I can't hear a thing because all I can hear is...
That's what I sound like to Jonathan when I talk.
So
this was a recurring dream.
A recurring dream, the only recurring dream I had as a child. And I only put all this together later. And then I asked them, and they were like, yes, that was a form of us. And you were in communication with us. They said it would have been very inconvenient for my life if they had stayed in communication with me. So they left at the age of 6. And funnily enough, all the reasons I had to go to personal development work and heal started from the age of 8. So from the age of 8 to 16, when I started to go back towards finding myself, that was when all of my own self-destructive behaviors took place.
do we all have different guides and the Z's are just the ones that speak through you?
Yes, they have said that we all have guides, we all have angels. Not everybody is going to come to know them, but we're all working with a team. Our idea of individualism is a myth. And how they explained it to me, because I'd only heard of like a channeler that was channeling one being or one angel. That's all I knew when I was that young. But what they said is we're a group. But they said as a group, we can also communicate with any other being that we need to communicate with to bring the right information to you, which is why they said, think of us as a consciousness library. They said, but you are no different as a human. They said, you are a composite of all the people you've ever interacted with, been influenced by, experienced. And so that made sense to me, even though that was the first time I'd ever really encountered anything like that.
Okay. What is the difference between a spirit guide and an angel?
My understanding, and I'm not an expert, I don't spend days and days researching this stuff, but my understanding is angelics are very much here for healing, balance. They bring grace. They give us, they help us to live in times of crisis. They will get closer to people when they're going through health crises or emotional crises. They will try and bring signs and illumination to us to get us back to the light if we've gone into the dark for a healing period. Guides tend to be more informational. They aren't necessarily working with your energy field the way that angelics will. And angelics in general tend to be a little less verbal. I remember, so I had a partner who since passed, but he would ask lots of questions when I was under the channeling state. And this is 20 years ago. And we still have all those recordings somewhere. And at one point different beings were coming through from my group. And when the two of the angels that work with me came through, they really didn't like it here. I remember very vividly from the recording, they were going, it's so dark here, because they were inhabiting my body and they were seeing through my eyes. I used to have my eyes open when I channeled, and then I realized it was leaking too much energy, and also when I did it at workshops, people would get very fixated on my eyes. So I found it was a distraction, and for my own energy containment, I thought, oh, I've got to stop. I can do the open-eyed, but I don't.
So angels, when you say they're less verbal, they're kind of working, not in the shadows, but they're kind of working behind the scenes, uplifting energy, helping people heal.
I am wary to say that because I am sure there will be people on the planet who speak to their angels and they translate angel messages. So I don't want to make a blanket statement here. What was described to me was that the angels that work with me are here for energy balance, but they aren't necessarily the ones that are giving me information. Zachary, who is the name of the lead spokesperson for my guides, and that crew, there are a number of them in that group who are verbal with me, but they also explained of this group of 88, there are energy engineers who work with your energy system, and there are those who balance your health. So apparently for all of us, we are just connected to that web of spirit. And I'm someone who accesses it through channeling and through focusing my intuition there. But I've met other people who are just living there the whole time, and they're not very on the earth. I'm more of a hybrid, so I can access the spirit realm, and I live very intuitively, but I'm also in the human realm. So I'm kind of between the two worlds.